I've always believed that words have power, perhaps that's why mine have always betrayed me. My name is Chang Min and I'm 26 years old. When people first meet me, they often comment on my appearance: delicate, pretty, almost fragile looking. I suppose being an Omega contributes to that perception, though I've never quite understood why my secondary gender should define how others see me. But it does. It always has. The stutter, though, that's what truly defines me in most people's eyes. I remember the day my parents died. I was 10 years old, sitting in my grandmother's living room when the police officers came to the door. I tried to ask them what happened, tried to form the words, but they caught in my throat like stones. WW where? That was all I could manage before the tears came. Grandma Lim took me in without hesitation. She was a small woman with silver hair always tied in a neat bun, and hands that smelled of the herbal ointments she made. From that day forward, she became my entire world and I became hers. Chang Min, she would say, cupping my face in her weathered hands, your words may take time to come out, but when they do, they carry more weight than anyone else's. You think before you speak. That's a gift. I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her. But high school taught me otherwise. The bullying started almost immediately. I was not only an Omega, already considered weak and submissive in our alpha-dominant society, but I was also a stutter. The combination made me an easy target. Hey look, it's Chang Min, they would mock, their laughter echoing through the hallways. I learned to keep my head down, to make myself invisible. I ate lunch in the bathroom stalls. I avoided group projects. I disappeared into the background of my own life. There was an incident in my second year that I still have nightmares about. A group of alpha students cornered me after school, demanding I give them money. I tried to refuse, tried to explain that I didn't have any, but the words wouldn't come. They just laughed as I stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, my Omega sense spiking with fear. PP please. Was all I managed. They took my bag, scattered my books across the wet pavement, and left me there in the rain. I didn't tell Grandma Lim. How could I? She already worried about me so much. Instead, I learned to be even more invisible, even more silent. If I didn't speak, I couldn't stutter. If I didn't stutter, maybe they would leave me alone. But silence has its own weight, and I carried it like a stone in my chest for years. University was marginally better, if only because the campus was larger and I could disappear more easily into the crowds. I studied business administration, keeping to myself, speaking only when absolutely necessary in class. My professors learned to accept written assignments instead of oral presentations. I graduated with honors, though no one was there to celebrate with me except Grandma Lim, whose hands had grown more frail, whose eyes held more worry. You're so smart, my boy, she said, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks at my graduation. Your parents would be so proud. She never stuttered, but in that moment, I heard the echo of my own speech in hers, a moment of shared emotion that transcended words. 3 months after graduation, I made the decision that would change everything. I'm moving to Seoul, Grandma, I told her one evening over dinner. Her spoon paused halfway to her mouth. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. Seoul is very far, she finally said. I can know. But I need to start over. Away from here. Away from everything. She understood what I meant. Away from the memories, the bullies, the constant reminder of being the stuttering Omega who couldn't defend himself. She reached across the table and took my hand. Then you must go, my dear boy. But promise me you'll call every week. I promise. And so, with 2 suitcases and a heart full of hope and terror, I moved to Seoul. Seoul was overwhelming in ways I hadn't anticipated. The city moved at a pace that made my small hometown seem frozen in time. People rushed past each other on the streets without making eye contact. The subway system was a labyrinth of pushing bodies and automated announcements. Everything was louder, faster, more intense. I found a small studio apartment in a modest neighborhood, barely big enough for a bed, a desk, and a tiny kitchenette. But it was mine. For the first time in my life, I had a space that was entirely my own. Job hunting was brutal. Every interview felt like torture. I would sit across from recruiters trying to answer their questions, feeling my face flush as the words caught and stumbled. Most would grow impatient. Some would try to hide their discomfort with forced smiles. A few were outright dismissive. After 2 months of rejections, I was starting to lose hope. My savings were dwindling, and I had begun considering returning home when I received a call from Kim and Associates, one of the biggest firms in Seoul. We'd like to offer you a position in our accounting department, the HR representative said. Your qualifications are excellent, and we value diversity in our workplace. I almost cried with relief. Kim and Associates occupied 3 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in Gangnam. On my first day I stood outside the building staring up at the reflective glass that seemed to touch the sky. This was it, my fresh start. The accounting department was on the 15th floor, a maze of cubicles filled with the sound of clicking keyboards and muted phone conversations. My supervisor, Miss Park, was a beta in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Chang Min, you'll be working on reconciliation reports initially, she explained, showing me to my cubicle. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I nodded, grateful that she didn't press me to respond verbally. My coworkers were a mixed group. There was Jae-hyun, an alpha who seemed friendly enough at first but had a competitive streak. Minji, another omega who worked in data entry, gave me a sympathetic smile on my first day. And then there was Sung-ho, a beta who seemed to watch everyone with calculating eyes. I kept my head down and focused on my work. The numbers were easy, they didn't judge, didn't mock, didn't require explanations. I could lose myself in spreadsheets and forget about the rest of the world. But there was one person in the building who made it impossible to forget where I was. Seo Cha-wook. I first saw him 3 weeks into my employment. I was heading to the break room when the elevator doors opened, and there he stood, tall, imposing, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. His presence seemed to fill the entire hallway. An S-tier alpha, the kind whose pheromones could make even other alphas submit. Our eyes met for just a moment. His were dark, intense, unreadable. I felt my omega instincts kick in, the urge to lower my gaze to make myself smaller. I clutched my folder tighter and hurried past, my heart pounding. That's Seo Cha, Minji whispered to me later. They call him the Tyrant. He's brilliant but absolutely ruthless. He fired 3 managers last month for missing a deadline. He sounds intimidating, I managed. Intimidating doesn't even begin to cover it. Just stay out of his way and you'll be fine. But staying out of his way proved difficult because over the following months I kept running into him. He would appear in our department for random inspections. He would pass by my cubicle and I would feel his gaze on me, though I never dared look up. Once we were in the same elevator and the tension was so thick I could barely breathe. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that he was watching me far more than I realized. And somewhere along the way, despite telling myself it was foolish, despite knowing he was completely out of my league, I started developing feelings for the Tyrant CEO. It started small, a flutter in my chest when I heard his voice, a heightened awareness when he was nearby. I would catch myself thinking about him during my lunch breaks, wondering what he was like outside of work, if he ever smiled, if his intense exterior hid something softer underneath. I knew it was hopeless. Men like Cha-wook didn't notice men like me. I was just another employee, easily replaceable. And besides, even if by some miracle he did notice me, what would I say? How could I possibly express myself when I couldn't even speak properly? So I kept my feelings locked away, buried deep where they couldn't hurt me. That is, until the day everything changed. It was a Wednesday morning, approximately 10 months into my employment at Kim and Associates, when my carefully constructed invisible existence shattered. The quarterly reports were due, and the entire accounting department was under pressure. I had been working on the reconciliation for the marketing department's expenditures. Tedious work, but straightforward. I had double-checked everything as I always did, and submitted my report to Ms. Park. I was at the break room making my usual cup of tea, when I heard raised voices coming from the conference room. Someone made a critical error in the marketing reconciliation. Ms. Park's voice carried through the glass walls. The numbers don't match the bank statements. We're short by almost 50 million won. My stomach dropped. I rushed back to my cubicle and pulled up my files, checking them again. No, everything was correct on my end. The discrepancy wasn't from my report. But when I arrived at the conference room, I found Jae-hyun already there, standing beside Ms. Park, and they were looking at a printed copy of a report. A report with my name on it, but with numbers I didn't recognize. Si Chang-min, Ms. Park said, her expression troubled. Can you explain these discrepancies? I looked at the paper, my mind racing. That's not. I didn't. You didn't what? Jae-hyun interrupted, his alpha pheromones spiking with aggression. You didn't mess up? The report has your name on it, Chang-min. Are you saying someone else made the mistake? And no, I mean, this isn't the R report I submitted? So now you're saying someone changed it? Sung-ho had appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. That's a serious accusation. I felt my face burning. The familiar panic was rising in my chest. The same panic I'd felt in high school hallways, cornered and unable to defend myself. My words were tangling, refusing to come out in the right order. The numbers. I checked. Maybe you should have checked more carefully, Jae-hyun said, his tone mocking. Or maybe accounting isn't the right fit for you. This is a serious firm. We can't afford mistakes like this. Please, Honestly, how did you even get hired here? Sung-ho chimed in. I mean, you can barely string a sentence together. No wonder you made such a mess of this report. The words hit me like physical blows. I saw Min-ji standing in the doorway, her expression sympathetic but silent. No one was going to defend me. No one ever did. I didn't. Please, if you just look at my original F file. Is there a problem here? The voice cut through the room like a blade, cold, authoritative, absolute. Everyone turned. Seo Cha-wook stood in the doorway, his presence immediately dominating the space. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees. His dark eyes swept across the room, taking in the scene, me clearly distressed, surrounded by my co-workers. Mr. Seo, Miss Park stammered, bowing quickly. There's been an error in the quarterly reports. We were just. I heard what you were doing, Cha-wook interrupted, his gaze now fixed on Jae-hyun. I heard you mocking an employee for a speech impediment. I heard you making baseless accusations without proper investigation. Jae-hyun's face paled. Sir, I was just. Quiet. The single word carried such authority that Jae-hyun immediately fell silent. Cha-wook turned to me. Chong-min, correct? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Show me your original file. With shaking hands, I pulled up my computer and showed him the report I had submitted. He studied it for a long moment, then looked at the printed version Miss Park held. These are different, he stated flatly. Why, yes, sir. I don't know how. Miss Park, pull up the submission logs. I want to know who accessed this file after Chong-min submitted it. It took Miss Park only a few minutes to pull up the information. Her face grew increasingly uncomfortable as she read the logs. It appears, the file was accessed and modified by Jae-hyun 30 minutes after Chong-min's initial submission. The room fell utterly silent. Jae-hyun's face went from pale to red. I was just trying to. I thought I saw an error, so I. You modified a colleague's work without permission, introduced errors, and then blamed him for your mistakes. Cha-wook's voice was ice. And then you proceeded to bully him when he tried to defend himself. Do I have that correct? Sir, please, You're suspended, effective immediately. 2 weeks without pay. Consider yourself fortunate I'm not terminating you outright. He turned to Sung-ho. And you, encouraging this behavior, participating in the harassment of a colleague. 1 week suspension. Both men looked shocked, but neither dared argue. Cha-wook's alpha pheromones were overwhelming the room now, a clear display of dominance that made even Miss Park lower her gaze. The rest of you back to work, he commanded. And let this be clear, I will not tolerate bullying or harassment in this company. Anyone who has a problem with a colleague's speech, appearance, or any other personal characteristic can find employment elsewhere. Is that understood? A chorus of yes, sir followed. As everyone filed out, Cha-wook's eyes found mine again. For a moment, I saw something in them, something that wasn't cold or ruthless. Something almost protective. Chong-min, stay for a moment. My heart hammered as the room emptied. We were alone now, and I was acutely aware of his presence. His height, his scent, the way he seemed to fill every inch of space. Are you all right? He asked, and his voice was softer now, almost gentle. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. You don't have to be afraid to defend yourself, he continued. Your stutter doesn't make you any less capable or valuable. In fact, from what I've seen of your work over the past months, you're one of the most thorough and accurate employees in this department. Why, you've noticed my work? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Something flickered across his face. Was that amusement? I notice more than you think, Chong-min. And with that cryptic statement, he left, leaving me standing alone in the conference room, my mind reeling and my heart doing strange things in my chest. The weeks following the incident passed in a strange haze. Jae-hyun and Sung-ho returned from their suspensions subdued and avoiding me entirely. My other co-workers treated me with a new wariness, or perhaps respect. I wasn't sure which. But the most significant change was in how I felt about Seo Cha-wook. My feelings, which I had tried to keep manageable, bloomed into something I couldn't control. He had defended me. He had seen my work, noticed me. The way he had looked at me in that conference room, it played over and over in my mind during sleepless nights. I found myself watching for him more deliberately now. I would time my coffee breaks to coincide with when he might be walking through the building. I memorized his schedule, when he arrived, always at 7 a.m., when he typically left, rarely before 8 p.m., which meetings he attended. I knew it was pathetic. I knew I was setting myself up for heartbreak. But I couldn't help it. Then came the announcement that sent the entire company into a flurry of excitement and anxiety. CEO Cha is hosting a company dinner, Miss Park announced one Monday morning. All employees are invited. It's this Friday at the Riverside Hotel. Company dinners were a Korean tradition I had always dreaded. The expectation to drink, to socialize, to be outgoing, everything that was difficult for someone like me. But this was hosted by the CEO himself. Attendance wasn't technically mandatory, but it might as well have been. The week leading up to the dinner, I rehearsed conversations in my head, practiced ordering drinks without stuttering, prepared myself mentally for an evening of discomfort. Friday arrived too quickly. The Riverside Hotel's banquet hall was elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River. Round tables were arranged throughout the space, each beautifully set with fine china and glassware. A bar stood at one end, already surrounded by employees eager to start drinking. I arrived early hoping to secure a seat in a quiet corner, but Minji spotted me and waved me over to her table. "Chang-min, sit with us." I had no choice but to comply. The table filled with people from various departments, all chattering nervously about the CEO, about work, about weekend plans. I nursed a glass of water and tried to look engaged while saying as little as possible. When CEO Cha Wook entered the hall, the noise level dropped noticeably. He wore a dark blue suit, his hair styled back from his face, and he moved with the confident grace of someone who knew he commanded every room he entered. He gave a brief speech, thanking everyone for their hard work, acknowledging the company's recent successes, encouraging continued dedication. His eyes swept across the room as he spoke, and when they landed on me even briefly, my breath caught. Then the dinner service began, and with it, the drinking. Korean corporate drinking culture was intense. The soju flowed freely, and refusing drinks from superiors was considered rude. I tried to pace myself, knowing my tolerance wasn't high, but people kept refilling my glass. "Chang-min, you're not drinking enough," one of the managers called out, pushing another shot toward me. I smiled weakly and downed it, feeling the burn all the way down. The room grew warmer, louder. Conversations blurred together. I excused myself to get some air, stepping out onto the hotel's terrace overlooking the river. The night air was cool against my flushed face. I leaned against the railing, watching the lights reflect on the water. I felt dizzy, disconnected from reality in a way that was both pleasant and disturbing. Taking a break? I turned to find CEO Cha Wook standing a few feet away, a glass of whiskey in his hand. When had he come out here? "Why, yes, sir." It was getting warm inside. He moved to stand beside me at the railing. "You can call me Wook when we're not in the office." The suggestion felt intimate, dangerous. That W would be inappropriate, sir? Perhaps. He took a sip of his drink. "How are you finding the company?" "Really?" I considered lying, giving the expected positive response. But the alcohol had loosened something in me. "It's be better than I expected," I said honestly. After what happened before, people have been different. They should be. Behavior like that is unacceptable. Tish, thank you for defending me that day. And no one has ever. I trailed off, afraid I'd said too much. "No one has ever stood up for you?" he finished softly. "That's hard to believe. You're clearly competent, dedicated." "But IST stutter," I said, the words bitter. "People don't see past that. Then they're fools." The conviction in his voice made me look up at him. In the dim light from the hotel, his features seemed softer somehow, less intimidating. "You have a beautiful mind, Chang-min. The way you approach problems, the thoroughness of your work. I've reviewed many of your reports. You think differently than others, more carefully. Your stutter doesn't diminish that. If anything, it's part of what makes you unique." The words were breaking something open inside me, all the walls I'd built, all the carefully maintained distance. Combined with the alcohol coursing through my system, I felt dangerously close to saying something I couldn't take back. "I should get back inside," I mumbled, turning toward the door. But I moved too quickly and the world tilted. Cha Wook's hand shot out, steadying me by the elbow. "How much have you had to drink?" "I don't. I lost count." He sighed, a sound that was almost fond. "Let's get you some water." He guided me back inside, his hand warm and steady on my arm. But instead of returning to the banquet hall, he led me to a quieter hallway where hotel staff were setting up coffee service. "Sit," he commanded gently, directing me to a bench. I sat, watching as he procured a bottle of water from a passing server. He opened it and handed it to me. "Drink." Slowly. I obeyed, grateful for his presence even as I was mortified by my lack of control. As the evening wore on and people started leaving, I found myself growing more and more unsteady. Cha Wook stayed with me, a solid presence in the chaos. Eventually, most employees had departed. Cha Wook looked at me with something like concern. "I'll take you home." You're in no condition to get there yourself. I can manage, I protested weakly. Chang-min, don't argue with me. And maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe it was the fact that I was tired of always being strong, always managing on my own, but I let him lead me to his car. The city lights blurred past the windows as we drove. I should have given him directions, but I found myself watching him instead. The way his hands gripped the steering wheel, the line of his jaw, the concentration in his eyes. "You're staring," he said, not taking his eyes off the road. "You're very handsome," I heard myself say, and immediately clapped a hand over my mouth. Did I just say that out loud? He glanced at me, and was that a smile tugging at his lips? "And you're very drunk." Maybe. But it's still true. You're the most handsome man I've ever seen. I think about you all the time. Is that weird? It's probably weird. I'm sorry. I should stop talking. But I couldn't stop. The words kept coming, a dam broken after years of silence. I watch for you at work. I can know your schedule. I know you arrive at S7 and leave late. I know you drink Americanos, take 3 shots of espresso. I know you're left-handed and you tap your pen when you're thinking. I'm sorry if that's creepy. I can't help noticing everything about you. The car had stopped. I realized dimly that we were parked, but not in my neighborhood. Where are we? My place, Cha-wook said quietly. You're too intoxicated for me to leave alone. You'll stay here tonight. I should have protested. Should have insisted on going home. But instead, I let him help me out of the car and into an elevator that required a key card to access the top floor. His penthouse was stunning. All clean lines and expensive furnishings, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of Seoul that took my breath away. "Come on," he said, guiding me toward a bedroom. "Let's get you to bed." The bed was enormous, covered in soft gray linens. He sat me down on the edge and knelt to remove my shoes. "You don't have to," I started. "Hush." Something about the gentleness in his actions, the care he was taking, it overwhelmed me. This man, this powerful, intimidating CEO, was kneeling before me, treating me like I was something precious. "Wook," I whispered, and when he looked up, I cupped his face in my hands and kissed him. For a moment, Cha-wook froze. His hands stilled on my ankles, and I felt him tense beneath my touch. Then he pulled back, his dark eyes searching mine. "Chang-min, you're drunk," he said, his voice rough. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," I insisted, my hands still framing his face. "I've wanted this for so long. I've wanted you. You'll regret it in the morning. The only thing I'll regret is not telling you how I feel." My inhibitions were completely gone now, drowned in soju and longing. I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of staying silent. I like you, Wook. I've liked you for months. Chang-min. His voice held a warning, but also something else, something that sounded like yearning. "Don't you feel it too?" I asked, emboldened by the way his eyes darkened, the way his hands had moved from my ankles to rest on my knees. The way we notice each other? The way you defend me, watch over me? He closed his eyes, seeming to war with himself. When he opened them again, the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. "I've been watching you since your first week," he admitted. "The way you focus on your work, biting your lower lip when you're concentrating. The way you make tea, always jasmine, always in the same mug. The way you're kind to everyone despite how they've treated you. The way your voice catches when you're nervous and how you fight through it anyway." My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might break free from my chest. "You're beautiful, Chang-min, inside and out. Your stutter, it doesn't make you less. It makes you more real, more genuine. When you finally manage to get your words out, they matter more because I know how much courage it took to say them." "Then why are you resisting?" I whispered. "Because you're drunk. Because you deserve better than a moment you might not remember. Because..." He swallowed hard. "Because if I start, I won't be able to stop." "Then don't stop," I said, and kissed him again. This time he kissed me back. His lips were warm and firm against mine, careful at first, as if I might break. But when I pressed closer, when my hands slid into his hair, something seemed to unleash in him. The kiss deepened, his tongue sliding against mine, and I made a sound I didn't recognize as my own. He stood, pulling me up with him, never breaking the kiss. His hands were in my hair, on my waist, mapping my body with a hunger that matched my own. "Are you absolutely sure?" he asked, pulling back just enough to speak. "Are you sure you want this? That you want me?" "I've never been more sure of anything," I breathed. What happened next was a blur of sensation and emotion that I would remember forever, despite the alcohol. He kissed me again, slower this time but with clear intent. His lips traced from my mouth to my jaw, down my neck, finding the sensitive spot where my scent gland was. When his mouth closed over it, I gasped, my knees nearly buckling. I've got you, he murmured against my skin. He laid me back on the bed with surprising gentleness for someone with such a fierce reputation. His hands worked at my shirt buttons with practiced ease, kissing each new expanse of skin as it was revealed. The room spun slightly, but I didn't care. All that mattered was his touch, his presence, the way he was looking at me like I was precious, like I was wanted. "Look," I whispered, reaching for him. "I'm here," he promised. "I'm right here." He removed his own shirt, and I took in the sight of him, broad shoulders, defined muscles, skin that seemed to glow in the dim light. He was perfect. When he settled over me, the weight of him was grounding, real. This was happening. This was real. "Tell me if anything is too much," he said, his breath warm against my ear. "Tell me if you want to stop." But I didn't want to stop. I didn't want this moment to end. His hands were everywhere, gentle but possessive, learning my body, finding places that made me gasp and arch. He took his time, despite the clear evidence of his own desire, making sure I was comfortable, that I was ready. "You're so beautiful like this," he murmured, kissing down my chest, my stomach. So responsive. I was lost in sensation in him. The room faded away until there was only us, only this connection that felt inevitable, like we'd been moving toward this moment since the first time our eyes met. When we finally came together, it felt like coming home. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and a headache that felt like my skull was splitting open. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. Then I felt the warm body beside me, saw the arm draped across my waist, and memory came flooding back. Oh God. Oh God. I had kissed Seo Cha-wook. More than kissed. I had confessed my feelings, insisted on everything. Everything that had happened last night. My face burned with mortification. I tried to ease away from him without waking him, but the arm around my waist tightened. "Where do you think you're going?" His voice was rough with sleep, but there was amusement in it. I should go. I'm sorry. Last night I shouldn't have. Chong-min. He rolled over, propping himself up on one elbow to look down at me. His hair was mussed from sleep, his eyes still soft. "Breathe." I tried, but my breath came in short, panicked gasps. "You're panicking," he observed calmly. "Let me guess, you're mortified about last night? You think you made a terrible mistake. You're worried I'm going to fire you or treat you differently at work." All of that was accurate, so I just nodded miserably. He sighed, then did something unexpected. He smiled. Not the cold, professional smile he wore at the office, but a genuine, warm smile that transformed his entire face. "I've been wanting to do that for months," he said simply. I blinked. "What?" "Kiss you. Touch you. Have you in my bed. I've been watching you, Chong-min. Not just your work, you. The way you are when you think no one's looking. The way you hum softly when you're focused. The way you always hold the elevator for people even when you're running late. The way you leave encouraging notes on Minji's desk when she's having a hard day. You noticed all that?" "I notice everything about you. You think I randomly show up in the accounting department? That I just happen to take the elevator at the same times you do? I've been finding excuses to be near you, hoping you might see me as something other than the tyrant see." My mind was reeling. But why? Why would someone like you be interested in someone like me? His expression sobered. "Someone like you? Chong-min, you're kind, intelligent, resilient. You've overcome so much. Losing your parents, dealing with bullying, moving to a new city on your own. You face every day with quiet courage, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "And your stutter? Do you know what I see when you stutter? I see someone who refuses to be silenced. Someone who fights to make their voice heard even when it's difficult. That's not weakness, Chong-min. That's incredible strength." Tears pricked at my eyes. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. "I thought you were just being kind. That day you defended me, I thought. You thought I would have done that for anyone," he finished. "And I would have. I don't tolerate bullying in my company. But Chong-min, I also did it because I couldn't stand watching someone hurt you. The idea of you being mocked, being made to feel small, it made me furious." He sat up fully, pulling me with him so we were facing each other on the bed. "I like you, Chong-min. I have for a long time. I was trying to keep my distance, trying to be professional, but then last night..." He smiled ruefully. "Last night you took that choice away from me, and I can't say I'm sorry about it." So you don't regret it?" I asked in a small voice. "The only thing I regret is that you were drunk. I would have preferred our first time to be when you could fully remember it." Heat flooded my face. "I remember it," I admitted quietly. "Most of it anyway. Enough to know that I meant everything I said." "Good." He leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. Because I meant everything I said too. So what happens now? Now, he said, standing and holding out his hand to me, I make you breakfast. Then we talk about what this means for us. I took his hand, letting him pull me up. He handed me one of his shirts, soft, expensive cotton that hung to my thighs, and led me to the kitchen. The penthouse kitchen was all sleek marble and stainless steel. Chowwook moved through it with surprising ease, pulling out ingredients while I perched on a bar stool at the island watching him. You see cook? I asked, surprised. Don't sound so shocked. I live alone. It was either learn to cook or eat takeout every day. He cracked eggs into a bowl with practiced efficiency. Besides, my mother would disown me if I couldn't make a proper breakfast. The domestic scene felt surreal. This was the man known throughout the company as the tyrant, the CEO who made executives tremble with a single look. Yet here he was, whisking eggs and humming softly, wearing pajama pants and nothing else, his hair still adorably mussed. What are you thinking about? He asked, glancing at me. That you're different than I expected. Disappointed? No, just surprised. In a good way. He plated the eggs along with rice, kimchi, and grilled fish, setting everything before me with a flourish. You need something in your stomach after all that soju. The food was delicious, and as we ate, some of my nervousness faded. This felt comfortable, natural. Like something we'd done 100 times before. So, Wook said after we'd finished eating, we need to talk about logistics. My stomach clenched. Logistics. I want to date you properly, Changmin. But we work together. That complicates things. Oh, right. I hadn't even thought about that. Is there a P policy against the CEO dating an employee? Not explicitly, but it would raise eyebrows. People would talk. They would say I'm sleeping my way to the top, I said quietly. That you're taking advantage.